Most couples wait an average of 6 years before they seek couples therapy and will come and see me in my private practice and ask me, why is my relationship falling apart? Now, obviously, every relationship is different and there's no way I can nail this video for everyone watching, but I do want to get your relationship to the next level with 3 ideas I have on fixing things. And hopefully, by the end of this video, you'll have some ideas on what to work on. And I hope you do remember that you don't have to wait 6 years to get some help. If we've not met before, I'm Oliver and I'm a couples therapist here in Los Angeles, and I have been doing this for nearly a decade. Therapy, that is. I've been doing therapy for a decade, not making YouTube videos. I'm actually quite good at doing therapy, but apparently not so good at making videos. So let's get into it. Reason number 1 why your relationship might be falling apart: are you too close or are you not close enough? So let's talk about what emotional closeness is. Sometimes a couple shows me how close they are by sitting on top of each other in my office or sitting as far away from each other as possible. Most often, I understand emotional closeness from what each person in the relationship says about how they feel about their partner and their relationship in general. I'm picking up on whether there's any animosity in their descriptions of their partner, if there's any criticism or contempt, or perhaps even worse, a lack of any feelings whatsoever, which might indicate that there's a lot of emotional distance, that they've just shut off and turned off their feelings. I'm hoping that I do hear some descriptions that have a positive regard or feelings of gratitude towards their partner. Now, other times, it's an over-the-top description of how amazing their partner is, how close they are. They'll say things like, we have so much in common and we're just soulmates. And that might be a sign to me that there's too much closeness or some enmeshment. Ideally, I would like a healthy middle ground. Not too close, not too distant, somewhere in the middle. Emotional distance is an obvious and easy fix because one or both partners will share that they don't feel connected anymore. And my fix is to get them talking about their feelings. Now, I can guarantee that one or both of them will have very thought-based discussions, intellectual-based discussions with each other. They'll be talking about meaningless things like the weather or the latest episode of Bridgerton. When there's a lack of feelings being discussed, it means that I've got to get them being vulnerable and emotionally open with each other. So I will be handing out the feelings manual and I'll be getting them to use good old-fashioned I statements, which is a really good start to bringing people back to being emotionally close. But what happens if you're too close? Sometimes a couple, this is me, but you, are so close they become enmeshed. They turn into this sort of blob of we. Now, this is really normal at the start of a relationship, that honeymoon phase where you want to spend every single second of every single day together. But in healthy relationships, though, there's a return to more of a balance. There's a you, there's a me, and there's a we. But sometimes one or both people don't want to demush, and it doesn't make for happy, healthy relationships. So fixing this type of relationship problem is encouraging you to be separate and to have separate interests outside of each other. And trust me, you will appreciate each other so much more if you're not always on top of each other and have things to talk about. Underneath this refusal to demush, there's sometimes some insecurity or jealousy or anxiety that if one partner becomes more independent and start having separate lives, it will mean that the relationship will end. That's your anxious attachment. It's still a conversation about feelings, though. We've got to get this couple talking about their fears and learning to regulate their anxiety or fear about losing the relationship without becoming controlling or needy, and regulating their feelings by talking. If this has been helpful so far, or you think you might like where it's going, do me a favor and hit subscribe or like or share. It just helps me know that there are people watching this and you might want more videos. Now, to sweeten the deal, you can go ahead and download my 7-day relationship rescue worksheet. It's nearly 50 pages long. It's totally free, filled with 7 exercises and activities for you to do solo or with your partner that might help you think differently about your relationship and give you new tools to connect. Reason number 2 why your relationship might be falling apart, well, this carries on a little bit from number 1, and it's all about focusing on the other person. When a couple comes to see me, I want to see who is focused on who. In healthy relationships, we accept responsibility for ourselves. We're not blaming the other person, or, and this is really important, we're not staying in a relationship expecting the other person to change. And we're not going to therapy expecting me to change the other person. Neither of those work. The more you try and change someone, the more likely they are to dig their heels in further and not do the thing you want them to do. But more importantly, they are going to retreat further away from you because nobody likes being told that they need to be different or they have to change. On top of that, they can become resentful and irritable. And resentment's the number one killer of intimacy and desire. So let me spell this out for you. If your partner feels controlled or trapped, or that you want them to change, there's going to be some anger and some resentment somewhere. When there's anger and resentment, there's no room for intimacy, no room for connection. And over time, you might very well feel that your relationship is falling apart because that emotional connection has been eroded. So the lesson here is to stop trying to fix your partner. And that is really hard. I get it, because you love them and you care about them. But when there's too much focus on the other and too much anxious worry, which is all thoughts, it pushes people away. We are highly, highly allergic to our partner's anxiety and we retreat from it. So Roberta Gilbert, this fantastic systems therapist, says that worry is on some level an aggressive. And the person you worry about will respond to that as if it's hostile. So they may get snippy or cranky or irritable or just retreat from the relationship. And that might make you feel that your relationship is falling apart. So remember, your zone of control is right here within you. You have no control over whether another person changes or not. You might have some influence, sure, but changing yourself, changing the way you behave, is the only way of fixing relationships with this kind of problem. So how do you do that? Well, you start focusing on you. Not at the expense of neglecting your partner or having affairs, but you prioritize your own happiness, you prioritize your own self-care, your own life and me. And the idea is when your partner feels that anxious focus on them softening or lowering, you might find that they move closer towards you. Another way to think of this is the distancer and pursuer dance. So if you're worried about your partner trying to change them, focusing on the things that they do wrong, it's a form of you chasing them. You're moving towards them. The more you do that, the more the distancer will distance. So the golden rule for the pursuer is that they cannot ever chase a distancer. It just doesn't work. Reason 3 why your relationship might be falling apart. Let's talk about relationship communication. The greatest gift you can ever give your partner is the gift of truly understanding them. And that means you have to listen. So right now, if you're thinking of skipping this part because you think you already listen, you should hold on a second. As a therapist, I basically get paid to listen. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to it, but I do a lot of listening. And I can personally tell you that it is hard work, it does not come naturally, and it's something that you have to work on continuously. So I challenge you to reconsider if you're actually listening to your partner or not. Truly listening to someone means that you're listening to learn, which is different from listening to respond. Most of the couples that I work with, one or both of them are not listening to each other. And this is a really human tendency because when we're listening to someone, we're actually coming up with the answer, the counter argument, the witty anecdote, the comeback, the solution to the problem. And that is all listening to respond. Your brain is so busy, you're not actually paying attention to them. Instead, we have to listen to learn, and it's the ability we all have to develop, put aside our own thoughts and our own feelings that are coming up in the moment to focus on what your partner is saying. Now, you don't have to ignore your thoughts and feelings entirely. You just have to put them aside until you've made sure that the other person feels understood. And then you might get a chance to share your thoughts and feelings after. I literally think the world would be a better place if we could all learn to listen, to understand. If your relationship has a lot of conflict going on in it at the moment, and that's a concern for you, then this skill is even more important for you. Now, I totally understand that when your partner is angry or accusing you of something you did or didn't do, it's incredibly challenging to put those thoughts and feelings aside and just listen to someone. Every part of you will be wanting to retaliate or retreat or defend yourself. Totally get it. But you will completely change the dynamic of your relationship if you say something like, honey, I get it. You're really angry at me and I want to understand why. Tell me what's going on. And then you just listen. It is completely disarming to someone who's angry, and it's all your partner really wants is for you to understand why they're hurt and why they're angry. And let's face it, anger is usually just covering up some sort of pain, sadness, feelings of hurt or loneliness. If your relationship is falling apart because there's been some infidelity or cheating or an affair, I still think listening is one of the core skills that has a chance of turning it around. Most people have affairs because their needs aren't being met in the current relationship. If they feel unloved by a partner, they're going to go and get that attention or love from someone else. But if we're listening and obviously talking about what we feel and what we need, but there's less of a chance of that happening. So there are so many other answers I have to offer when couples ask me, why is my relationship falling apart? And I think I could probably do another 5 videos on these. So if this has been at all helpful or you want me to talk more on the subject, drop me a comment below and I will keep them coming. If you're really concerned about your relationship, don't wait 6 years to get help. There's online therapy, there's in-person therapy. There are always affordable therapy options in your area. And your relationship doesn't have to fall apart if you take action now. I get that YouTube videos are a wonderful source of information, but it is just not the same as getting real professional help in weekly therapy.